The massive holographic display flickered to life in every major city on Earth. The image showed a tall, humanoid figure wearing elaborate golden robes. High Commander Marcus of the Galactic Empire stood with perfect posture, his gray skin reflecting the artificial light of his chamber. His expression remained neutral, but his 6 fingers tapped impatiently against the ornate throne he sat upon. Behind him, the council chambers stretched endlessly, filled with representatives from 10,000 worlds. None of them spoke, none of them moved. They all knew what was about to happen. The same thing that had happened countless times before across the galaxy. People of Earth, Marcus began, his universal translator converting his words into every human language simultaneously. Your civilization has reached a crucial milestone. Your recent achievements and faster-than-light travel have brought you to our attention. The streets of New York, London, Tokyo, and hundreds of other cities fell silent. Millions watched the sky, where the massive Empire ships hung like dark stars, visible even in daylight. The Galactic Empire extends across 40% of the known galaxy. We bring peace, prosperity, and order to all civilizations worthy of joining us. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. Your species has shown promise. Despite your primitive technology and limited resource base, you have achieved spaceflight and colonized your solar system. In the United Nations Emergency Council chamber, General Williams clenched his fists. The military leader had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses for this exact moment. Next to him, President Adams watched with narrow eyes, her mind already working through possible responses. Marcus continued, his voice carrying the weight of 10 millennia of absolute authority. We offer you membership in the Empire. Your world will be granted access to our technology, our markets, and our protection. In return, you will submit to imperial law, pay the standard tribute, and accept our governance. The Empire's ships shifted position, spreading out to cover Earth's major population centers. A clear show of force, meant to emphasize the next part of the message. You have 24 Earth hours to accept our generous offer. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Should you refuse, we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of defiance. The Empire cannot allow potentially dangerous species to develop independently. The hologram flickered as Marcus gestured, showing recordings of other worlds that had resisted. Planets reduced to ash. Civilizations erased. The message was clear. Choose wisely, Marcus concluded. We await your response. The hologram vanished, leaving Earth's cities in stunned silence. Inside the UN chamber, emergency meetings began immediately. Military commanders shared knowing looks. They had run this scenario thousands of times in simulations. President Adams stood up, her voice steady. Get me a direct channel to the Empire's flagship. It took 30 minutes to establish the connection. Marcus appeared again, looking mildly surprised that the humans had responded so quickly. He expected them to use the full 24 hours to panic and argue amongst themselves. High Commander, President Adams spoke clearly. We have received your message and reached our decision. Marcus smiled faintly. They all surrendered in the end. It was simply the logical choice. The nations of Earth, speaking as one voice, have a response for you. She paused, making sure she had his full attention. Come and try. The smile vanished from Marcus's face. In 10,000 years of Empire history, no species had ever. I must have misunderstood, he said slowly. Are you refusing our generous offer? We are. President Adams's voice remained calm. Earth does not surrender to threats. We never have. We never will. The transmission cut off, leaving Marcus staring at empty space. In the council chambers, representatives began whispering amongst themselves. This was unprecedented. Prepare the fleet, Marcus ordered, his voice hard with anger. It seems the humans require a demonstration of our power. As the Empire ships began moving into attack positions, they failed to notice something important. Earth's orbital defense platforms, which had appeared primitive and inactive, were powering up. Deep underground, Missile silos opened silently, and in hidden shipyards across the solar system, humanity's real fleet waited in darkness. The Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had confused humanity's careful preparation for weakness. They were about to learn why that was a fatal error. Earth was ready for war. It always had been. The Empire's fleet moved forward with perfect formation. 500 ships, each the size of a small city, approached Earth's orbit. High Commander Marcus watched from his flagship's bridge, expecting the short, brutal battle that always came after a world-rejected Empire rule. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "the humans are powering up their defenses." Marcus nodded, unconcerned. "Let them. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Begin the standard attack pattern." The first shot of the First Contact War wasn't fired by the Empire's massive ships. Instead, it came from what looked like a broken satellite drifting in Earth's orbit. The small object suddenly came to life, revealing itself as a stealth weapons platform. Its beam cut through an Empire cruiser's shields like they weren't there. "Impossible," Marcus shouted, watching one of his best ships split in half. "Their weapons are supposed to be primitive." More orbital platforms revealed themselves. Dozens, then hundreds of them, all firing weapons that somehow ignored the Empire's most advanced shields. The neat formation of Empire ships broke apart as captains tried to dodge attacks they had never seen before. Deep in an underground command center, General Williams watched the battle unfold. "Launch the counterattack," he ordered. "Show them what Earth can really do." From hidden bases on Mars, behind the Moon, and in the asteroid belt, Earth's real fleet emerged. Not the simple ships the Empire had seen before, but advanced warships built for one purpose: defending humanity. They had been waiting, watching, and learning from every alien ship that passed near their solar system for the past 50 years. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons," Commander Roberts broadcast to the human fleet. "Use the kinetic cannons." The human ships fired, launching specially designed projectiles at near-light speed. Empire ships, their shields useless against physical attacks, started falling one after another. Marcus watched in horror as his perfect formation turned into chaos. "This is impossible," he repeated, his gray skin turning pale. "They're supposed to be primitive." "Their technology." "Sir," his sensor officer interrupted, "they're using our own scanning frequencies against us. They've been studying us for years." The battle spread across the solar system. Empire ships, designed for quick victory against inferior enemies, found themselves facing an opponent who had prepared for this exact fight. Human ships were smaller but faster, their crews trained for combat, while Empire crews had only trained for parades and shows of force. Near Jupiter, an Empire battleship commander watched in shock as 3 human ships disappeared behind the giant planet's moons. His sensors couldn't track them through the radiation belts that humans had learned to use as cover. The human ships reappeared behind him, their weapons already firing. "Fall back," Marcus finally ordered, watching his fleet being torn apart. "Regroup at the system's edge." But the humans didn't let them retreat easily. More ships appeared from hidden docks in the Kuiper Belt, cutting off their escape route. The Empire fleet, for the first time in its history, was trapped. In the UN Command Center, President Adams watched the battle's final phase. "Send the message," she ordered. Every Empire ship received the transmission. "You can retreat. Now, this is your only chance." Marcus stared at the message in disbelief. The humans were offering mercy. After destroying half his fleet, his pride warred with his survival instinct. "Take the offer," his second-in-command advised quietly. "We need to warn the Empire. These humans, they're not like the others." Pride lost to survival. Marcus gave the retreat order. The remaining Empire ships fled, their perfect formation forgotten, running from a species they had thought primitive just hours before. As the Empire ships disappeared into hyperspace, cheers erupted in command centers across Earth. But General Williams didn't celebrate. "They'll be back," he said quietly. And next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." President Adams nodded. "Then we'll have new tricks." She turned to her staff. "Send word to all our hidden shipyards. It's time to start Phase 2. In space, repair ships were already moving to collect damaged Empire vessels for study. Earth had won its first space battle, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and humanity was ready to take the fight to the stars. 2 weeks after the Battle of Earth, the Empire's War Council gathered in their grand chamber. The mood was dark. Holograms showed recordings of their defeat, playing over and over as military experts tried to understand what had gone wrong. High Commander Marcus stood before the council, his pride still wounded. It wasn't just their technology, he admitted. It was the way they fought. No fear, no hesitation. Their soldiers acted without waiting for orders. The council watched a new recording, a disabled Empire ship being boarded by human Marines. The Empire crew, trained only in basic combat, had surrendered almost immediately. The humans moved through the ship like they had trained for this their entire lives. Because they had. General Thompson's voice came from the council chamber entrance. All heads turned to look at the captured human officer. Against all tradition, the council had agreed to hear from a prisoner of war. Thompson stood straight, his uniform still crisp despite 2 weeks in captivity. "Your empire has known peace for 10,000 years, he said. Humanity has known war for 10,000 years. The council members shifted uncomfortably as Thompson walked to the center of the chamber. He pointed at their battle recordings. "Your soldiers train in simulators. Ours train in real combat. Your ships are built to look impressive. Ours are built to survive. Your crews follow strict protocols. Ours adapt and overcome." Marcus watched the human carefully. "You speak as if war is something to be proud of." "We're not proud of war," Thompson corrected him. "We're proud of survival. Earth's history forced us to become warriors. While your empire spread peace through surrender, humanity learned to fight for everything it had." The recordings showed more battles now. Human ships using asteroids as cover, Marine teams cutting through Empire defenses, soldiers making instant decisions that saved their crews. "Your empire's greatest weakness," Thompson continued, "is that you forgot how to face real resistance. You thought peace meant the end of conflict. Humanity knows better. Peace must be strong enough to defend itself." An Empire admiral stood up angrily. "You're savages. You hide your true strength, build secret weapons, and reject our civilization." Thompson smiled grimly. "We're survivors. Every human knows the stories of civilizations that fell because they weren't ready to defend themselves. We didn't hide our strength to trick you. We hid it because we knew someday someone like you would come to take what was ours." The council chamber fell silent as new reports arrived. More human fleets had been detected, striking Empire outposts across 20 systems. They weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were taking the fight to the Empire. "Your soldiers follow orders without thinking," Thompson explained. "Ours think, adapt, and act. Every human ship captain can make decisions that your admirals would need permission for. Every human squad leader is trained to complete the mission even if they lose contact with command." Marcus watched another recording of human Marines in action. Their movements were perfect, coordinated, but not rigid. Each soldier seemed to know exactly what to do without being told. "This is how humanity fights," Thompson said quietly. "Not with just technology or weapons, but with the knowledge passed down through generations of warfare. Every human knows what it means to fight for survival." The council members looked at each other nervously. Their empire had grown soft in its long peace. Their soldiers were trained to accept surrender, not fight to the death. Their crews expected enemies to give up after a show of force. "You have 2 choices," Thompson concluded. "You can keep fighting us, watching your empire crumble as it faces an enemy that knows real war, or you can talk peace, not the peace of surrender, but the peace of equals." Marcus stepped forward. "And if we choose to continue fighting, then you'll learn what humanity already knows. Thompson replied. Real war isn't about who has the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It's about who's willing to fight harder, think faster, and sacrifice more for victory. As if to emphasize his point, alarms began blaring throughout the council chamber. More reports of human attacks were coming in. The Empire was facing something it hadn't seen in 10,000 years, an enemy that wasn't afraid of them. The war was about to teach the Empire a harsh lesson about the true nature of humanity. The Empire's top scientists gathered in a heavily guarded research facility, studying the wreckage of a damaged human warship. What they found made them question everything they knew about Earth's technology level. "This isn't possible," said lead researcher Alan, an Empire scientist who had studied hundreds of alien civilizations. He held up what looked like a simple metal panel from the human ship's hull. "We thought this was basic armor plating. It's actually a complex quantum computer." The other scientists crowded around. What appeared to be plain metal was actually billions of tiny computers working together. The entire hull of the human ship was one massive thinking machine. "Their whole ship is alive," Alan whispered. "Every part works together, learns, and adapts during battle." In another part of the facility, weapons expert Dr. Martin examined a human fighter craft. "Look at this," she called to her team. "Their weapons aren't primitive at all. They're just disguised to look simple." She pointed to what seemed like a basic rocket launcher. "This doesn't fire rockets. It creates micro black holes. The Empire's sensors saw simple missiles because that's what we expected to see." High Commander Marcus walked into the research bay, his face dark with worry. "Tell me everything," he ordered. "Commander." Alan turned to him. "The humans didn't just hide their fleet. They hid their true technology level. Everything we saw before the war was a carefully crafted lie." On the main screen, analysis of human technology scrolled past. Their ships didn't just have shields. Their entire hulls absorbed and redirected energy. Their weapons didn't just fire projectiles. They manipulated gravity itself. Their computers weren't just smart. They were woven into the fabric of their ships. "This isn't just advanced technology," Dr. Martin explained. "This is technology developed specifically to defeat our defenses. They've been studying us for decades, learning our weaknesses." Marcus watched as they tested a piece of human armor against Empire weapons. The armor didn't just block the shot. It learned from it, becoming stronger against that type of attack. "Their ships do the same thing in battle," Alan added. "That's why our second and third attacks failed. Their defenses had already adapted to our weapons." A junior scientist rushed in with new data. "Sir, we found something else. Their communication system. It's not using regular signals. They're using quantum entanglement. That's why we can't intercept their messages." Marcus remembered the Battle of Earth, how the human ships seemed to work together perfectly without visible communication. Now he knew why. "How?" he demanded. "How did they hide this from us?" "Because we saw what we expected to see," Dr. Martin answered. "We looked for radio signals, so they let us find them. We looked for basic shield technology, so that's what our sensors reported. They showed us exactly what we thought a young spacefaring race should have." On another screen, a human fighter was being taken apart. Inside its simple-looking shell was technology that made the Empire's best ships look primitive. "Commander," Alan said quietly, "we haven't been fighting a primitive species. We've been fighting a civilization that might be more advanced than us. They just chose to hide it." New battle reports appeared on the screens. Empire fleets were facing human ships that seemed to become stronger with each encounter. Weapons that worked once never worked again. Tactics that succeeded in one battle failed in the next. "Their ships are learning," Dr. Martin explained. "Not just individually, but as a fleet. Every battle makes them stronger." Marcus stared at the reports in silence. The Empire had started this war thinking they were the teachers, coming to show a young species its place in the galaxy. Instead, they were the ones being taught a harsh lesson. "Prepare a full report for the Council," he ordered. They need to know what we're really facing. As the scientists returned to their work, Marcus watched another test of human technology. A simple-looking piece of metal transformed itself, adapting to every weapon they fired at it. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't just started a war with humanity. They had revealed themselves to an advanced civilization that had been waiting, watching, and preparing for this moment. And now, humanity was done hiding. Admiral James stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defender, looking at the holographic map of Empire space. Red dots showed Empire strongholds. Green dots marked human fleet positions. The number of green dots was growing. "Launch Operation Thunderstorm," he commanded. His words traveled instantly across human fleets through quantum networks. 50 battle groups jumped into action at exactly the same moment. The Empire had never faced an attack like this. They had grown used to defending one system at a time. Now they faced simultaneous attacks across 50 systems. Their command structure, designed for slow, careful responses, couldn't keep up. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "First wave reports success. 20 Empire defense stations disabled. 0 casualties on our side." James nodded. The Empire built their defenses to look impressive, to scare enemies into surrendering. Humanity built their ships to win actual fights. In the Beta sector, Commander Wilson's battle group attacked an Empire shipyard. The Empire commanders expected them to target the military ships. Instead, the humans destroyed the fuel supplies and repair facilities. "Strike the supply lines first," James had told his commanders. "An Empire ship without fuel is just a floating piece of metal." The Empire's response was slow and confused. Their ships jumped from system to system, trying to defend everything at once. But the humans weren't fighting fair. They struck weak points, destroyed supplies, and vanished before the Empire could respond. On a dozen worlds, alien species that had been forced to join the Empire watched the humans fight. They saw something new, an enemy the Empire couldn't simply overwhelm with numbers. "Admiral," his communication officer called out, "we're receiving messages from 15 systems. They want to join us against the Empire." James smiled. This was part of the plan, too. Show the galaxy that the Empire wasn't invincible, and their forced peace would crumble. The holographic map updated. Purple dots appeared, showing systems that had rebelled against Empire control. The Empire's territory was breaking apart from within. In the Centauri sector, an Empire fleet commander found himself caught between human ships and local rebels. His crews, trained to fight inferior enemies, didn't know how to handle attacks from 2 directions. "Empire ships are retreating from sectors 7 through 12, the tactical officer reported. "Their command structure is breaking down. Local commanders are refusing to follow orders from Central Command." James watched as more systems turned purple on his map. The Empire's greatest weakness was showing itself. They had forced worlds to depend on them for everything: food, fuel, protection. Now those worlds saw a chance for freedom. "Launch second wave," James ordered. This time, 70 battle groups jumped into action. They struck deeper into Empire space, targeting communication centers and command bases. The Empire's response was getting weaker. Their ships gathered in large groups for protection, leaving other areas undefended. The humans simply attacked the unprotected areas. "Admiral," his second-in-command reported, "the Empire is pulling back to their core systems. They're abandoning their outer territories." This was happening faster than even James had expected. The Empire didn't know how to fight a real war. They didn't understand that every retreat made them weaker, made more systems rebel against them. "Message from Earth Command," the communication officer announced. "Operation Thunderstorm is achieving all objectives. We're cleared to launch Phase 3. James looked at his crew. They had trained for years for this moment. Every person on his ship knew exactly what to do without being told. "Send word to all fleets," he ordered. "Begin Phase 3. Target: Empire capital." The holographic map centered on the Empire's home system. Their greatest cities, their strongest defenses, their seat of power for 10,000 years. They had never faced a real attack here. That was about to change. All ships, James broadcast to the human fleet, the Empire thought they could demand Earth's surrender. Instead, they showed us where they were weak. Now we show them what humanity does to bullies. Across human ships, crews prepared for the biggest battle yet. They weren't fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting to make sure no one ever threatened Earth again. The Empire was about to learn its final lesson about humanity. The Empire's palace world looked nothing like it had a month ago. Its golden towers were darkened, its perfect streets empty. Above the planet, the remnants of the Empire's home fleet formed a defensive line that grew weaker every hour. High Commander Marcus stood in the council chamber, watching emergency reports flood in. The Empire that had stood for 10,000 years was collapsing in just 3 months. "We've lost contact with the outer regions," an aide reported. 80% of our territory is either under human control or in rebellion. Marcus watched the strategic display with hollow eyes. Red lights were going out across the galaxy map. Each one represented another piece of the Empire falling. In orbit, Admiral James coordinated the final phase of the human attack. Unlike the Empire's rigid battle plans, the humans adapted their strategy constantly. When the Empire defended high, they struck low. When the Empire gathered their ships, the humans scattered and attacked from all sides. "Their last defense line is breaking," James's tactical officer reported. The Empire ships, once so proud in their perfect formations, were now scattered and confused. A transmission cut through all channels. On the surface, Marcus watched as human ships appeared through quantum tunnels, technology the Empire hadn't even known was possible. "High Commander Marcus," James's voice was calm. "You have 1 hour to surrender. Unlike you, we don't demand unconditional surrender. We offer terms." In the council chamber, the remaining Empire leaders argued frantically. Some wanted to fight to the end. Others begged to surrender. Their perfect system of order had shattered. "Look at what they've done," one council member shouted. "They didn't just defeat our ships. They broke our empire from within." It was true. The humans hadn't just fought with weapons. They had shown other worlds that resistance was possible. Planets that had lived under Empire control for thousands of years were declaring independence. Marcus watched another battle group surrender without fighting. Empire crews, seeing their homeworld surrounded, were losing their will to fight. "They beat us," he said quietly, "because they understand something we forgot. True strength isn't about having the biggest empire. It's about having something worth fighting for." Through quantum-encrypted channels, human commanders coordinated their final moves. They had discovered that the Empire's greatest weakness wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their belief that their system was perfect. 50 minutes until surrender deadline, James announced to his fleet. The human ships moved with precision, closing all escape routes from the palace world. On the surface, Marcus made his decision. He wouldn't let pride destroy what remained of his civilization. "Open a channel to Admiral James," he ordered. The human admiral's hologram appeared in the council chamber. Around him, Empire leaders held their breath. "We accept your offer of terms," Marcus said formally. "The Empire surrenders." James nodded. "A wise choice. Our terms are simple. Independence for any world that wants it, fair trials for war criminals, and a new galactic council where all species have equal voice." Marcus blinked in surprise. You're not destroying the Empire." "We're not like you," James replied. "We don't believe in empires. We believe in cooperation between equals. Your empire falls today, but your people don't have to fall with it." As human peacekeeping ships entered orbit, Marcus understood finally why the Empire had lost. They had built their power on forcing others to submit. The humans had won by offering a better way. "Ground forces report the palace is secured," James's tactical officer announced. "All strategic locations are under our control." In just 3 months, humanity had done what no species had managed in 10,000 years. They had broken the Empire not just through superior fighting, but by showing the galaxy a different path. The Empire's fall was complete. But as Marcus watched human ships land bringing not conquerors but diplomats, he realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. 1 year after the Empire's surrender, the Great Council chamber looked very different. Where once only Empire leaders sat, now representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered. Some were former Empire worlds, others were new allies who had joined willingly. Admiral James, now serving as Earth's representative, stood at the center of the chamber. The same spot where High Commander Marcus had once demanded Earth's surrender now hosted the first meeting of the Galactic Federation. The old Empire believed in forced unity. James addressed the gathering. "We believe in voluntary cooperation. Every world in this chamber chose to be here." Former Empire worlds had been surprised by humanity's actions after victory. Instead of replacing one empire with another, the humans had helped each world build its own government. In orbit above the former palace world, ships from 50 different species patrolled together. Human technology, no longer hidden, was being shared with allied worlds. But more importantly, human ideas about freedom and self-determination were spreading. "The Federation faces its first challenge," James continued. 3 former Empire worlds are fighting over resources. In the old days, the Empire would have forced them to submit. We choose a different path. On the main display, a new space station appeared. Built with human quantum technology and staffed by representatives from all member worlds, it would serve as a neutral trading post and diplomatic center. "We don't solve problems with threats," James explained. "We solve them through cooperation and mutual benefit." In the audience, Marcus watched with growing understanding. The humans had spent a year teaching former Empire worlds something new, how to solve problems without fighting. Earth learned through centuries of warfare that true peace comes from choice, not force. James said, "We fight when we must, but we prefer to build bridges." The Federation's principles were simple: mutual defense, free trade, and respect for independence. Any world could join, and any world could leave. It was the opposite of everything the Empire had stood for. "The galaxy faces many challenges," James continued. "Climate disasters, resource shortages, pirates in the outer regions. We will face them together, as equals." Across the chamber, representatives nodded. They had seen how humans handle problems. When a world faced disaster, human ships brought aid. When pirates attacked trade routes, human fleets protected all ships, not just their own. "Some asked why we didn't take over the Empire's territory," James said. "The answer is simple: forced control breeds resistance. Willing cooperation builds strength." In the space around the former palace world, construction ships worked on the Federation's new headquarters. Unlike the Empire's giant palaces, it was being built as a place for discussion and cooperation. Humanity spent centuries dreaming about meeting other civilizations, James explained. "We prepared for war because history taught us to be careful. But we always hoped for peace." The display showed new trade routes connecting formerly isolated worlds. Ships from dozen species traveled together, protected by joint Federation patrols. Former enemies were learning to work together. "The Empire ruled through fear for 10,000 years, James concluded. "Let's build something better that will last even longer. Not an empire of force, but a federation of equals." As he finished speaking, representatives from all worlds stood and applauded. Even Marcus joined them. He had seen his perfect empire fall, but what replaced it was stronger than he had imagined possible. The chamber's great doors opened, revealing the sun rising over the city. It was symbolic of the new era beginning. The galaxy was changing, growing into something new. "Message from Earth," an aide told James quietly. "All Federation protocols are now active. The transition is complete." James nodded, watching the representatives talking freely among themselves. The Empire had tried to control the galaxy. The Federation would help it grow. Humanity had come to the stars prepared for war, but hoping for friendship. They had found an empire instead, and showed the galaxy a better way. It wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. But as James watched the sun rise on the first day of the Galactic Federation, he knew one thing for certain. The stars belonged to everyone now.